Hello with my mic on, everybody. There we go. And bringing everybody in, welcome back to Indie's AR Explainer. This is episode 2, and it's actually part 2 of a very special episode called The Reality of AR in Fashion. Last week, we started in on the subject, but realized that we wanted to keep talking about it. So that's what we're going to do today. We've got 2 guests. I myself am Brett Kobe. And we've got Alex Paulson, the Chief Executive Officer, and Shava Fragoso, the Chief Development Officer. Welcome.
Right title this time.
Yes, I did. I studied it.
Good work.
D's and T's. In some languages, they are basically the same. So there we go. But thanks, guys, for joining. Today, wanted to get into the AR and fashion discussion in a bit more granularity, and I thought we could have a little bit of a frame, which I'm going to throw up right on Alex's face. Sorry, Alex, right. I can't move it. That's not
positioning.
That's it. And so we want to talk about how, from a customer experience, how they are experiencing technology and retail when they are passing a storefront, when they're walking in front of an actual building, when they're entering the store, where's the tech, and then also at home. So from a fashion point of view, where these are the kind of touch points that are traditionally the ones that you would expect from a fashion buyer or retail fashion consumer. And we're just going to kind of jump through a few different examples today and just have a chat about where things are at, what's good, what still needs some work, and also just looking at the solutions that people have found to all these different problems. So some of them are really good solutions, and some of them are just like, okay,
different.
So different, yeah.
Alternative.
Yes, alternative solutions, alternative facts to alternative problems. So
let's not go down that road.
Let's
not
do it.
That it's not going to be a 30-minute podcast.
No. Everything is fine. Wait, let me get the flame thing. No, I'm just so just to talk about from a storefront point of view, one of the things that you can do if you're a retailer is you're probably sitting on some real estate right now. You've got your traditional storefront. People are used to looking in your window. They're window shopping. I wanted to just drop in a few different examples of that being done. So just gonna throw up some video on screen here. This is an example of, I can't even say the name of this, Audemars Piguet. Yeah. No one on this call is going to say that right. So this is the case of
this is kind of
good.
No, I was just to say, so this is kind of mobile based.
Yep.
And then triggering, is that web based? Is it web AR or is it mobile app? It's probably web AR by the looks of it, because they're triggering off the QR code, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So you scan your QR code, and then so it looks like it's web-based.
Right. So, at the end of the day, it's a pretty kind of straightforward thing that is supposed to happen. You walk by, and you have a little scene that plays. So, from my perspective, not being an expert in any of the technology, it seems like a fun thing, neat. It's kind of in the neat category. But in terms of actually doing any hard retail work, it doesn't really do that much, right? Or am I missing something?
Well, I think there's 2 things that go on with these. So at the moment, AR still kind of sat within the sort of marketing side rather than the sort of consumer product side. And so what you've got there is effectively a marketing play, but it does require. It's an interesting kind of situation because someone's actually considered the idea of turning the shopfront into something dynamic, so to start off with, kind of congrats, because that's not that easy to even achieve. But I think you get into this thing that Shava will mention kind of probably more than once and has kind of mentioned to me several 100,000 times in the past 3-4 years. But the amount of friction that you kind of get when you try and attempt that. So you've got something running in the window, but then you also then need to communicate how people use it. So there's not really any there's not a use case. I mean, people aren't walking past expecting Windows to have dynamic video content or 3D content. So one of the first things you kind of struggle with, and the thing you kind of have to overcome is okay, how do people know that this is there, and then how do they activate it? And that's a real, yeah. Sorry, go, Trevor.
No, that's the thing. Like if you analyze step by step the consumer flow just to arrive to receive the message, it's like it takes a long time. And as you rightly mentioned regarding like where AR is sit in this specific scenario, I think that the simplest way to approach it is either help me or entertain me. So that is the two things that we can see that augmented reality has a potential in these things. But if either the entertainment or the help takes too long to arrive, is like sometimes probably a missing opportunity.
So let's just have a look at another example. This is Dior, and a little easier to say. A lot of French examples today.
So it's web-based again by the looks of it. So you're basically opening the browser, and then now you've got some friction issues, because now it's like you need to allow A, B, and C for it to actually trigger. And then obviously it's rendering. It looks like potentially 3D, but it could be sort of flat plane video.
It's flat surfaces and 3D environment. Yeah, because it's using the tracking as well, like to keep the graphics in position. And it looks nice, and it's like what I really like is that it adds a digital layer to the physical space, which in principle I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. So how you execute it is the thing that is debatable, because if you access through this with a QR code web based, that's right, like that less friction. Or through an app that you already own, or through Snapchat or through Instagram, like something that you are already in this channel of communication with the brand in order to arrive to the message.
Yeah, I think we're in that kind of stage right now where people are beginning to kind of experiment with the idea of what AR can give to a shop front. I think there aren't many things that are, other than AR, really you're into that kind of touchscreen environment, and I think that's kind of a trickier place. So AR kind of the big kind of affordance of it is that technically you can render dynamic digital content into the shop front. I think without criticizing other people's work, I would say that one of the key elements to doing that well, and that's really hard on mobile because you've got lots of limitations, but is to render digital into the physical space. And I think that's where that's where we kind of tried to play around a lot, and that's there's a lot of fun. So the idea of being able to add digital information onto what's already in the shop, and that goes back to kind of Trevor's point, really. Like, are you helping or are you entertaining? If you're giving me kind of live information about what's going on in the store, if you're adding live price offering to physical shop fronts, then that's, for want of a better word, that starts to get quite sexy actually, because people really sort of start to think, hold on a minute. This is now adding a layer that was previously impossible. And I think that's what we touched on last time, which was, how can a digital storefront, how can an online storefront be so reactive and so dynamic, and yet a physical storefront can be so kind of, so sort of flat.
So speaking of like sexy and interaction and all the stuff that you said, I'm wondering, and also friction, all these words that feel inappropriate in the wrong context. But I'm going to throw this other example because I thought this was really interesting, and something very Scandinavian, I think.
Wow, QR codes everywhere.
Right. Well,
it's like QR code 2020, the year of the QR code again, isn't it?
I can't say for sure that this was from 2020 in my research.
Okay.
But I am personally a big fan of the QR code, not because it's just because everyone knows it. Everyone. So in terms
they should do. It's been around for about the past 250 years.
Well, that's what working at an AR company. But look, talk to your parents and grandparents, right?
I'm joking.
But before we get into the great QR code debate, let's just tell me, is this the kind of thing, besides the QR code, which clearly you're not in love with, is
no, I know they do a job.
I mean, I have no stock in the QR code, right? So don't worry.
Imagine if you did that. 2020 would be a bumper year.
That would be yes. Is this the kind of? Tell me, like, where does this actually place in terms of digital, physical, regular, mobile? Like, what is this?
Is this person effectively controlling that content? I think, aren't they? They're able to. Yeah. See, to me, that's probably as interesting, if not more interesting, than some of the AR examples, actually, because to me, that's a custom-oriented solution to a problem, and that goes back to Chava's line, which is, okay, well, help me then. And actually, if they can unlock information and trigger information on another device or another screen or in another way, then that should be A, to a certain extent, removing a bit of friction, and B, adding a digital layer onto your physical shopping experience. I don't think necessarily it's always AR. Like, I don't think necessarily AR is always the solution in those areas.
And this is a specific example. Like, what I do like is that I, as a customer, receive information of what's happening inside without actually entering. Right. So I already invest my time in order to figure it out. Right. The thing that I'm not fan, and I never be fan, is about like this shaking gesture thing that can be solved with a button, and you have buttons there, but we need to grant access to your gyroscope, and it could be a thing. Like, I like the approach of information. The other thing is, I receive a larger size information that's it's still 2D, right? But yeah, like in terms of delivering the brand message, I think that it's doing a right job.
I think giving people, like, empowering people on the ground to do stuff is actually a really, really underrated tool. Like, if you think about it, most of your retail experiences, you don't. It's kind of like going to like museums that have kind of interactive displays and things like that. There's a button there, and you want to press it. And if that's generally the case in life, but in those kind of situations, it's amazing how little there is for you to change in the space. You don't really ever get the opportunity to adapt content, and probably an extra layer to that, digital content of any kind is never really adapted to you. So
don't you guys think? No, like, don't you guys think like there's already these gaps in the customer journey that we are feeling in a very primitive way as consumers? What I'm saying is, I'm going to a shop, right? I'm comparing, products prices. I'm checking it. I go straight to Google to check if I can find it cheaper. I can I'm enabling the digital connection with the physical product by myself, because as customer, most of the times I don't have that. So I'll search, I'll compare, I'll dig more. Like, I'll check reviews about the physical product, and that gap, it's existing because I'm the third customer. I'm your online customer. I'm your physical customer. I'm the same person, but I don't have that gap fulfilled. And I think that's the interesting part about this thing.
Which is super interesting, because that's one of the big problems, like particularly in US retail, is people browsing physical spaces and then just Amazoning it on site. So Amazon's just kind of basically sitting there waiting for you to go and touch a particular product and then kind of go, great, well, now I've got $7 off this and I've just ordered it and it's going to be there in the next 6 hours anyway. So yeah, I think that's a completely valid point. I don't feel like there's any connection to there's often, I mean, let's be honest, like when you walk into a store, you're presented with the brand usually in posters or video. And if the brand has appeals to a fairly large demographic, then again, a lot of that media is not adaptable. So it's not moving in time depending on who's walking into the store. And I think the kind of younger generation of shoppers are willing to move around spaces quite freely. There's not necessarily this kind of this idea of sort of shopping male female anymore. It's like, okay, I'll wander into that section and have a look at it. And I feel like now you're getting in as these posters in storefronts and are becoming displays. It hasn't really evolved that much. It's still doing exactly the same thing. It's just basically saying, okay, so we showed this picture of this person here related to this particular product line for a certain amount of time, and then we switch it. And actually the change is seasonal when the truth is the change should be like based on the person that's in the room. If you can present that product to a different person in real time, or if you can add a layer of meta information through mobile, for example. So if let's say you can, let's say there's a mannequin with a particular shirt on in the window. If I could actually recognize that in real time and trigger other complementary information, complementary brand information, if it was tailored to me being able to, knowing that I am whatever, so I'm 42. So it's like, okay, we're going to show the slightly older version of the complementary things rather than the younger version. That's all kind of technically possible now, but it's very rare that it's sorry, go on.
Just to interrupt you now. And the funny thing is that that's already happening, and we are already used to that on our online shopping, right? I'm Target, Retarget, Turbo Target every single time, right? Most of the times might be not useful. Some of the times it's very useful. But the thing, like that journey on a physical space, it's already possible. Like I can already be targeted by connecting with my loyalty program in my mobile phone, by computer vision technologies, like that's the thing, by like trying to send that specific message in the right moment on a physical commercial location. It's possible.
Yeah.
So why do you feel, if it's all possible and we're, I guess, conditioned now to see a Facebook ad when we know it's planted a pixel, so we know we're going to see it again because we scan a QR code and we're in the system. We scan that QR code and we had Facebook open on our phone, so boom, here it comes. So if we're used to that with our devices, what's the barrier to adoption to this happening in the physical realm if it's all technically possible?
I don't know. I think there's a lack of awareness about what is possible, and I think one of the things that we've been building AR apps of any kind of description, whether it was a mobile. We've been building them since 2010, and back in 2011. We put an iPad in a because the only way we could get an AR version working was to have it running on an iPad, looking out from the shop window. It was the world's worst mock-up. It was hilariously bad, but the principle was absolutely sound. But you realize that if we were just kind of realizing what it could do, you realize for the 3 years you were effectively evangelizing and talking to people about what this could achieve. And you're still doing it now to a certain extent. There's a lot of misinformation or a lot of sort of disinformation to a certain extent in terms of what is possible. Rather than rubbishing the things that currently are a little bit sort of snake oily, there's a lack of connection in between the retailers or the brands that are looking to do this stuff and the people that can physically do it.
Yeah.
And I think agencies often bridge that gap. Ad agencies do bridge that gap sometimes, but sometimes they add to the confusion.
Java.
I can say like two things, like extending in what Alex said. Like first is the fact that it's like, how can you make it for 100 locations, 200 locations? So like the scalability is one of the things. Not just the awareness. And that's why sometimes we see these great marketing videos about the potential of AR, the potential of dynamic display, the potential of, but most of the times it gets just either in the innovation stage or the marketing game. But we have been challenged by these things with our own products or with our own services when we need to think that it's not a one-off. Like for instance, like you can have an amazing experience and have a takeaway picture of your moment in the store. Who is the one repairing the printer, or changing the cartridge? So all these kind of things, like the physicality of the installations on site, sometimes it's something that either the innovation part of the marketing part don't want to show, but it's something real. So if I'm on the operational side, I won't care that much about your bling stuff. I will be very curious about how can we seamlessly operate in our locations this kind of technology. That's fine.
I was muted because this is a working office where other people are downstairs, and I think they're making cereal, M&Ms, every possible noise.
Cereal at 5 again.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is leaving, and we're having a party right here online. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I just wanted to show this one example here as this is some work that you did at Tilly's, I think, in LA, California, somewhere.
Yeah.
And just, can you, on the basis of this is, can you, for the layperson who's trying to understand the vision that you just described for that physical, one LinkedIn commenter said the Google Ads of AR experience, or just essentially if you would make this again today, right? With the vision that you're describing, what would we be seeing now? Or what would our experience be if we walked into the store? It doesn't mean that there's a dragon or anything, but essentially we're looking into Tilly's and it has totally tricked out with everything you think it should have. What am I experiencing as a customer?
So I don't think, so the first point with the Tilly stuff is that digital is not going to replace the physical view. And I think that's the kind of this common misconception that I think we even mentioned it last week. It was like, oh, it's going to change this. It's like, no. What it's going to do is going to add a dynamic layer to it. So if you get your go again on stuff like that, which I'm sure we will do, you want the view to be real. You want the entire view to be real. You want to do it so that no one has to download anything. You don't I'm a big fan of mobile AR in a lot of different settings. But in that particular storefront setting, if we've got lots and lots of people walking past, we don't want to get them to do anything. We don't want any friction. And we often kind of get criticized for this because it's like, oh, well, you could have done that with mobile. It's like, yeah, but we're trying to attract someone and keep someone there. And if I'm having to build a separate campaign to then do that, it's going to be problematic. So if the actual window is a complete view into the store, then why are we not able to place programmatic advertising based on who's in front of it, which we can do? Why can we not have different? So as you can see on the video, you can technically, with a slightly different setup, you could see the entire length of the store. Things that are actually at the back of the store. And to me, it was like, okay, we've got different people coming through at different times of day. Tilly's is a great example. So Tilly's is one of those stores that it's mind-bending how many different products for how many different age groups they have. And so you think, hold on a minute, if we know that that's running, and we know that at between 11, so let's say, Brett, you'll get this because you're from the US, but mall walkers, like I didn't know that mall walkers exist. So basically retired people, 60, 70, when the weather's bad, they get up and they go and walk in malls because they can't walk outside.
Just to say that is the only hobby anyone in the suburbs has at all. I know because I'm at all ages.
So
mall walker.
I was in a mall in New Jersey installing something years ago, and suddenly there was this army of this apocalypse type scene of all these old people appearing walking through the mall, but not looking at any stores because they're all shut. Anyway, long story short, so you've got different age groups walking through and appearing at different times. So you start to get into the idea of, okay, if we've been advertising that product from 9 o'clock, from 8 o'clock in the morning until 11, we now know that when school kicks out like 3, 4, we now know we've got a completely different set of people walking through that room. And so now we need to adapt that in real time and then start advertising different products at different price ranges all the way through. Like that's what that should do. and maybe a dinosaur.
And maybe or a dragon, and
it kind of ends up.
Yeah. So I want to just shift gears for a second to a few of our other things that cover up Alex's face, and just to jump over to what's happening in store and in home, and maybe just to start actually with a hybrid of the two. Here's an example of, you guys know this. Can you talk us through this one?
Yeah, Trouble, go for it.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. So it seems to be a mirror that scans your face, and yeah, it prompts you to like a virtual mirror, so you can overlay some of the clothes offering on your body and have a picture to like compare, take away, or share on social media. That's that's a really straightforward application of this thing.
But there's that QR code. Do we? So where? Like, can we rate this on?
Look, I'm really pro QR code. Okay, so I'd appreciate it.
Can we rate this on the friction scale though? So what is this kind of thing? In my mind, it feels hybrid-ish, like storefront versus something that you could do in home if you had a really cool mirror. But
yeah, right, imagine that.
Yeah.
I think there's it is a hybrid because it's not necessarily your body by the looks of it. So it's basically personalizing. It's basically sticking your head on a templated body so that the clothing can sit on top of it. I don't know if that really. I think the principle of it is completely sound. I think, as is often the case in these things, I think the execution sometimes gets confused because of the restrictions. But I think the idea of having the ability to try on clothes outside of a store, or even in a public space, is pretty radical. I think it's like that's one of the most exciting elements of kind of using this tech. I think that probably the issue they ran into is that they couldn't personalize. I'm assuming they couldn't personalize the frame to the clothing, so i.e. different size people arriving. Simple as that.
So on the other side, I just want to, when I prepare for these episodes, I go in as a normal person, which I am, luckily, to find out what normal people are doing in the comfort of their own homes when it comes to buying clothes, right? And one thing that I couldn't help but find so many of these is this thing called the Zozo suit, which is, if you go to YouTube, you'll see 50 videos of people trying on this suit, which is really interesting. And some people love it, some people hate it, some people may have been paid, some people hate it so much that they couldn't possibly have been paid, but I don't know. But anyway, it's there. So it seems to be like a motion capture suit that you put on at home, and then you use your phone to capture yourself. And what you never see in these YouTube videos is what happens after this stage. They just say, I loved it, I hated it, bye.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, isn't it? Because if you loved it, you'd want to show it, no?
Exactly, right. Well, you want to see, okay, I ordered the clothes based on this, and now it fits me perfectly. So if I tell you, like, for a lot of people, they will think maybe that this is the state of home try-on and technology. What is your reaction to that? Like, is it true? What's going on? Is this a thing?
I'm going to use the word friction again because because that looks particularly frictionful.
But Alex, what if it were covered in QR codes?
If it was covered in, well, technically,
technically it was.
Technically, it kind of is. I mean, it's an age-old tech, relatively age-old tech, kind of motion capture, kind of 3D studios, etc. have been using it for years, and Hollywood movies have been using it for years, and it's kind of evolving at a rapid pace. And it gives you the opportunity to measure movement in a very, very clear way. So animation studios will use it to basically record motion data so that they can then add the 3D character to the motion data, so the motion will be lifelike. So the science is completely sound. I just don't know. I think the discussion around kind of try-on is really about, and Chava and I have actually kind of argued about. We'll not argue about this. We don't argue. We just bicker. But what the fitting of how important the fitting is in the general scheme of things. So is that point number one, that you have a very, very clear understanding of your measurement, or are there other kind of factors that are more important, which Csaba would probably argue?
Yeah, definitely. So we are looking here.
Right, you're muted.
Yeah.
Just to say that we've now completely blocked Alex. So Csaba definitely has the, it's back now, definitely have the floor to tell us. So, when you developed this test, your hypothesis was this is the starting point, right? You need to be able to do this before you even think about any motion capture technology and any suits, right?
It's two directions to try to solve the same problem. In the previous example that you said, like more than a motion capture suit, basically like those dots is to track movement, right? So if with the sensors of your phone, you can actually have like more accurate measurements. That it will be translated into data. How this data will be delivered in an avatar shape, just in like the range of your size in X brand of clothing. So in our example, let's say that we are like arriving from a different source. Like for us, it's really important like to untap that specific moment of looking yourself in the mirror and having these digital clothes on top of you. Like that's a different approach. With this, we can have an estimate about the sizing, but we don't need to go that specific to like put a tracking suit in order to do these things, or how other companies are doing that, creating like a full scan of yourself and providing you your 3D avatar the next day that weighs like 300 megabytes that you need to download and have a mini version of you. So it is a different approach, and that's why for us, coming from the AR experiential part, I think that like there's a lot of room for us to create a nice experience to connect this the emotional connection between like seeing yourself in the mirror with those digital clothes, and again, like trying to be frictionless.
So one other, we talked on the last episode about the limitations of what you can do with something like that, and audience, please refer back to the other one where we were very negative about where things stand. But today is a new day, and it's actually raining. But we're very excited about the possibilities today. Just knowing that currently, the in-home story, whether that example happens in a store or at home, the situation is a little bit comparable at the moment. But if you think about how, with the in-home situation, how could a consumer actually be excited about a fashion line beyond just the try-on thing? So I wanted to show one example that I thought might fit there. This is a recent product launch in AR for the new OnePlus smartphone. And what you see here is just, this is clearly in a home because there's a couch there. That's how I know. And you just see like a whole show unfolding with an actual person there. And I wondered, can we be thinking about, does H&M put on their new fashion show in this way so that you can experience that in home in this way? Or like, is there something here that fits with the in-home fashion story? I don't know. It's a question.
I think there's a lot that can be done with it. I think the idea of the fashion brands have had to kind of quickly sort of bump up their knowledge in this kind of stuff because they've had to launch a lot of products online only. And so I think the virtual catwalk thing makes complete sense for something like this, for technology like this. I think the idea of kind of product visualization to a certain extent is useful. I think the idea of kind of live event broadcasting using AR is kind of super interesting. Yeah. It's in its infancy, but it's something that's getting there faster and faster. I think being part of something that's being beamed in, but having it 3-dimensional is pretty cool. I noticed with Unity, like Unity's IPO last week, they had they had the line in there that basically the world is transitioning from broadcast of 2D to 3D, which is something that we kind of lived with for a long time. And I think you can sort of take that principle to that completely and say, well, if I can have that event happening in a more sort of immersive format, then I'm going to probably do it. It's just a question of how much content you can kind of basically pump through for that particular event. I don't know if it was recorded or not. I didn't kind of.
I don't know. I didn't dig that deep yet, but yeah, I mean, it looks like it would be a lot of fun if it went off without a hitch. Of course, I watched it without sound or actually having experienced it. The video recap is always better than the actual thing, I find, because you can just kind of tweak that a little bit. But it looked like a great execution from the video. Just to jump back to the clothing story here. So these are, as I understand it, some tests with the Indie Viewfinder product. Sorry, I got these from YouTube and the ad popped up.
I saw that.
That's what happened. So is that your ad? So AR Google ads. There you go.
I don't know if we're getting paid for that. Keep playing it.
So tell me, like, how does that all actually? What are we looking at, and how does it all fit together? And what is this? Sorry. Oh, she's coming. There we go.
Yeah. Well, this is like another of the approaches that we have in terms of product visualization, especially on a mobile platform. The idea is that to have in the e-commerce sites, we either have photos or videos. So we were toying with the idea of like 3D product visualization, but again, like instead of using an overlay and in a way that for the users will be difficult to capture themselves with the clothes, we were using this avatar to showcase the cloth, just to prove the point that this kind of visualization can be also part of the customer journey that it's already well established within e-commerce sites. So that is the approach that we took in this one.
There's a good connection between the two. There's a good connection between the conventional shopping experience and then the visualization side. I think that was kind of one of the reasons why we included the kind of dummy UI in there, so that you can specifically see how you would choose it and configure it. Because often, again, there's a lot of this kind of, oh my God, what have I got to do now? How's this going to work? But actually, the transition on that one's quite relatively simple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a fun one, that one.
Cool. And I just wanted to kind of bring us back to maybe I would consider the low-hanging fruit of home try-on. And this one, there's something that has done the rounds quite a bit. This is a Gucci example. Can you just tell me a little bit, like, are shoes easy?
Shoes are easier. Shoes are easier, period. Mm-hmm. I mean, just the setup. So the setup of you holding that's what you do when you try on shoes. You basically, you put them on and then you stand up and then you lift your feet up like that. And then you kind of try and find a mirror. So the idea, that to me is the clearest example of how mobile AR translates to selling more retail products if it's shoes. It works.
So do you think that would work for gloves?
It would technically work for gloves. I don't know how many people try on gloves though. I don't.
Everyone.
It's a big. I don't. Yeah.
They just don't know they need them yet. But once once Apple tells them that they need them.
Well, you're technically doing this, aren't you? So you're technically kind of doing. You're like putting your hand up here and doing that.
Yes.
And then having to kind of move.
Rings, huh?
Rings, yeah, you could do it with rings. Yeah, mm-hmm. You could do it with watches. I've seen there has been some good examples of people apparently buying sort of $8,000 watches on through a mobile app, which I find slightly difficult to believe. But that's something that does work. The positioning. I mean, the old thing was the kind of the actual QR marker, which you wore as a wristband, and then you kind of pointed the phone at it.
Right.
But do you know what? The two advantages of, like, for instance, the watch example or the shoes example is that, like, that kind of product visualization, you can achieve something really realistic in an easier way that, for instance, moving clothes. So that's why like there's this specific difference in nature about like how good it looks and how realistic it looks. So I think that we can say that it is a little bit easier on this kind of products. Same, for instance, like purses, bags, something that is not actually like something that is moving or that has these physical qualities. It always makes it more realistic.
I think hats and glasses, I think there's been a lot of good work done with the kind of face stuff. So mobile face tracking has kind of evolved tremendously. And mobile wise, it's kind of at that point where it's kind of working well enough now, and you can do a lot of interesting stuff. Again, the hat can kind of be on your head. It doesn't necessarily it's not going to necessarily move as you move. Right. The glasses are kind of the same thing. If you can get a realistic render of the glasses, I feel like I'm surrounded by two people wearing glasses at the moment. If you can make it look like that or like that, then you can basically, that's enough. Like, as long as it tracks and as long as there's a realistic feeling of the glass, I think that's enough. I don't know, like, people can kind of comment as to whether they've actually used it to buy. Fashion is there's jewelry.
Wanda, have you used it to buy anything? Can we ask you?
Yeah.
If you've bought anything, so just come back and tell us if you have.
I mean, Modiface did. Modiface went to, was it Estee Lauder? It was Estee Lauder. I think they got bought by Estee Lauder. And so Modiface with the makeup, like they did tremendous work. Because they just circled in on, like, okay, how can we do that, and how can we only do it with makeup, for example?
Yeah, so, and with these two overlay, sorry, just to finish on that thing. Like, there's two important things, or two, like, final consumer goals. One is, how do I look, and that's kind of it's an easier way to achieve it. And the other, like, does it fit me? And that's a little bit more complicated, because once that you start, like, that's different. Like with hats, with jewelry, as they were saying, it's easier to, like, just to overlay, because you don't have this full need to know that is the specific size that they mean. So that is two different challenges that, like, little by little it's getting there, like, to fulfill all the needs on that.
I think with clothing, I think with the kind of mirror and the try-on stuff, one hasn't used it, but would definitely use it for lipstick. Trying them on in real life is messy. That makes a lot of sense. That's not something I'd ever say.
I bet 3 guys on a LinkedIn Live would not think of lipstick, would they? But
I've had my color for years, so I kind of very, very rarely strayed out of any brand. But
that's a really point. Thank you for sharing.
That's a brilliant example of what happens when the customer meets the tech. Mm-hmm. So when the customer arrives and says, "That's not really my problem. My problem is this."
Yeah.
And a lot of times, us sometimes included, and a lot of kind of tech side, they're solving that problem that is not really wanted. And I think with the clothing, I think you're definitely going to see with the clothing, you're going to see it hit a point, and it's going to be us that gets there. And you're going to see it hit a point with the rendering, and there's something, and you won't know what it is. You're just going to see it in the next 6-12 months. You're going to see it, and you're going to go, "That's enough."
Right.
And it won't be because of a particular, you won't be able to say, the number was 312, or the setting was B. It's just going to be like a load of different things get matched up, and you're kind of going to go, okay, that would be enough for me.
Yeah.
And I think, sorry, go on.
You go ahead.
No, I was going to say that menswear, I think menswear could potentially be first, because I think they're less demanding in a lot of sense. I mean, menswear has evolved tremendously over the past kind of 10-15 years, but I think that there'll be a basics. I think you'd have to begin with a basics, with a kind of a casual kind of side of stuff. And I think if you can work through from there out, then you've got a pretty great roadmap of how to do it.
Cool. Well, it sounds like we're, there's some low-hanging fruit. There's some things that are worth trying, and then good to hear on the positive note that we are 6 months away. Great from just cracking in that.
Well, don't get me wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong. We're on it now. Like, I mean, the video, we're in like several sprints to get the rendering up to speed and the tracking up to speed. So who knows? I mean, if Chava's brilliance is continuously on display as usual, then it might be even a matter of weeks.
Like, full disclosure, I received some shade for in the previous episodes, like 5 years. Everyone was like, but in my head, it is the full, the full product life cycle.
Yeah.
Shade.
I feel like there's a couple of conversations with AR that kind of need to be addressed. One is what can it do now and how well can it do it? And the other one is stop telling people that they're all going to be wandering around in Apple glasses in 3 months' time. That's the only time I get a bit sniffy. And Magic Leap, which to be fair, they deserve it. But I think there's a lot of stuff happening as like all the videos have kind of come up. There's a lot of stuff happening, and it's iterating incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
And I think for you, for you to look at, consider using it or the idea of using it, I think you have to be in early because you have to understand how it works. You have to understand what it does and doesn't do. But it's moving quick, like super fast.
Yeah. If just look at all the things that are happening on the space of like body scanning with mobile devices and how it could be applied into not only visualization but reduce returning of clothes or like perfect fit and so on. Like there's a lot of interesting thing happening there. So,
but that's the customer need, isn't it? That's again, it's like okay, the customer's getting something they can use at home in certain way, and also the brand is then able to reduce returns by I don't know 10%, 15%, 20%. Like that's a huge change, and that's a kind of viable way of kind of selling in that particular product. But I think that I just think that there's a need for you to go through those processes first. You have to build these things to be able to understand what's broken and fix them. That's not really negative.
No,
I'm a relentlessly positive person.
No, but it's a little bit of a humble approach, isn't it? Because it's not that I will disrupt this process. It's how can, with this piece of technology, can enhance that specific part of the consumer flow. And I think to be humble and have this approach, it's always a better pay.
Well, it evolves, doesn't it? I think the reality, having been in it, having been developing this stuff now for 9 years plus, it actually has moved on in a really, really steady way, 6 months, 12 months, etc., etc. And I think the more people in the industry who treat this as, okay, how can I use this to make this better, rather than just just saying, oh, AR is going to change, AR is going to do. It's going to do A, B, and C, whatever. Like, let's look at the idea of like, how is that going to allow you to try on clothes at home in real time and buy them instantly? Like, if that's the problem we're trying to solve. If you're going to solve that problem, then that's great. If you're going to reduce returns, that's great too. And so I think it's just kind of how you view it. That's all.
So solve a customer problem, solve a business problem, and then it will be a thing, and then we'll just have it. It will be there. And Oh wait, one final question, Arnaud. Could AR bring the bricks and mortar retail to your living room so all brand could go
2D?
Oh, okay.
D2.
I was like, what is that? T2. I was like, got Arnold Schwarzenegger in the house. So is there, like, basically, does it kill bricks and mortar?
I don't think so.
Never. Okay, bricks and mortar.
I don't think it's gonna. I think it's gonna change. I think like this year sped it up, but I don't think it's gonna change. I think it's gonna be there. People are still gonna want it, I think, but they're gonna have to start really upping the game in terms of the coordination between digital and physical, like big time.
Yeah.
Well, if there's one thing we've learned from this pandemic is that people are desperate to get back to physical spaces. So check out AR Explainer.
What a segue.
That will not be.
What a segue.
And anyway, a terrible segue to our outro, but this has been a really cool conversation, guys. I think we covered a lot of ground. We covered our Beautiful 3 pillars there: storefront, in-store, in-home. You know what I thought was lacking, because I prepared it, was the in-store. I would like to talk about that more next time, and figure out what exactly you could do there. Don't start telling me now, because I want to save it for another episode. But I want to feel like I go into the store and a lot of stuff happens frictionlessly, and I feel like this was a better store visit than before. I have not seen that happen yet. I have not experienced that.
When was the last store you walked in that you thought that you came out and liked the brand more than when you walked in?
Stores, Brett and Stores.
Brett and Stores.
That's the cliffhanger. That's the cliffhanger for next time. I'm going to research it, because right now I'm coming up with nothing. I really hate going to stores.
Yeah.
I'm not into it. So, but look at me. I wear the same clothes every day. Like,
yeah, is that the same shirt from last week?
Okay, time to go now. Time to go. So that was episode 2. So we'll be back with more AR Explainer. This has been Csaba Fragoso, CDO of Indie, Alex Paulson, CEO of Indie, and I have been Brett Kobe, the AR Explainer. It's the name of the show and also the title that I hold. So thanks for joining us. We're gonna go and let's can we do like a touch handshake type thing? Is that weird? We do it in a way. Yes.
I can't. So I'm a little bit dirty arm. Sorry.
I
we talked about
social
it.
distancing.
Yeah, I can't put my hands up all that, like, because of the. Yeah.
I understand. You've been working on your motorcycle. It's a thing that you do. So next time, more on motorcycles and fashion and augmented reality. That's AR Explainer for today. Thanks, everybody. We're out. Bye-bye.
See you.